Hey guys, Eric and Joshua here to talk a little bit more about Star Wars: The Force Awakens.
Yeah, it's only 88 seconds, but you didn't think that would stop us
It's not
from
going to stop
talking about
us.
it endlessly, did you?
That's right. You know, in this 88 seconds, we don't see a lot, so it's worth noting that we see Stormtroopers maybe
Yes.
more than anything between John Boyega in that costume and then the scene on the ship with the Stormtroopers. But our big question here is, why are there Stormtroopers? I mean, this is basically, we think, real time, as in it'll be about 30 years after Return of the Jedi. Last we knew, Death Star blew up. Yay, Ewoks are dancing. Why do you think Yub-nub. Sometimes. Why do you think there even are Stormtroopers 30 years later?
Well, you've got to wonder, when the Empire died, that didn't really mean the end of all the Empire, because they just killed the two figureheads, the Emperor, Darth Vader, blew up a big battle station. As we saw in Attack of the Clones, in Return to the Revenge of the Sith. They were on hundreds of worlds, if not thousands, tons of troopers spread out across the entire galaxy, lots of battle cruisers and ships and fleets. Right. So just because two people died and a battle station was destroyed doesn't mean that all that was, destroyed at the same time. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I feel like there's maybe pockets of resistance or remaining stormtroopers out there somewhere, and maybe they're coming back, Emperor striking back again or something. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, yeah. So it's really hard to divorce yourself from the expanded universe, right? Because so many of the books and comics were set after Jedi, and they were so specific about the New Republic and Leia's in charge and all this, and there were many stories about pockets of the Empire coming back. But it is hard not to think that it is something like that. My only question is, has this been an ongoing issue, or has, like you were saying, have they been very dormant for quite a while, and then it's like, oh, here they are again with their sleek new costumes and ready to cause some havoc. But it's so hard for me, and I'm sure it's hard for a lot of people who've read even more books than I have, to not think about exactly what the books were, but it's kind of be something like that,
Yeah,
right?
you got to think that they've looked at the EU and sort of cherry-picked the best things and kind of squished it together into this cool new movie we're going to get. Yeah. But part of me is wondering if it's not the Empire as we know it. Maybe it's just Stormtroopers and TIE fighters. And by the way, there's TIE fighters as well.
There's TIE fighters too, yeah.
And so here's what I think is maybe because it's the Force Awakens and we're getting more light and dark, so it means I think we're going to get more Jedi and more Sith. So maybe the Sith are coming back, rallying the remnants of the evil Empire. I'm not going to call it the Empire, but these people may be following the Sith as a religious leader instead of what was there before. Or
I mean, maybe whoever's in charge of what we thought of as the Empire could have completely different philosophy. Maybe even could be seen as a better person than the Emperor. We don't know. We should talk about John Boyega though, because he's the first person we see in the trailer, and he's wearing that armor. Since we know so little about this movie, we don't even know if he is in fact an actual stormtrooper, or someone, is it a callback to the original Star Wars and he's stolen a stormtrooper uniform? What do you think?
Yeah, like Luke and Han went and put on stormtrooper outfits. That's a theory, sure. But if you really look very, 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 very closely, frame by frame on the John Boyega image, there's sort of looks like there's sort of scarring right here, like he might have gotten shot, and when he turns around on his back, normally there's a little pack, but there's a black circle there as if it was taken off. So I think maybe he was they took his transmitter off and shot him and left him for dead. That's why he's stressed out there on Tatooine by himself. So maybe he he was a stormtrooper and he had a change of conscience, and then so they tried to kill him to get rid of him or something, and they stranded him, and so he becomes a good guy going to do his own thing. That's a wild theory.
But I think it is going to be something like a stormtrooper who starts to question something, or and I do think he will be a stormtrooper. Part of that's hope, because I think it'd be so cool to kind of have the perspective of a stormtrooper, guys who literally never took their helmets off. That we saw. We knew Luke and Han took their costumes. We never saw those guys in the original trilogy. It'd be really cool to sort of finally get their perspective. And again, presumption, is he one of these guys? Is this a mission early in the movie he's on?
Yeah, that's him right there, and he's the second helmet.
Right. And we kind of see what is it like as a stormtrooper. I really hope so, because that's a really cool idea, I think. Yeah. It could be really fun.
Yeah, and I think it's also something to bring up is that people are thinking, well, big part of the prequels was that all stormtroopers are Jango Fett, clone of Jango Fett. As you see here, you know, they're different heights.
Yeah.
John Boyega is obviously in a costume if he is indeed a stormtrooper.
Right.
So what does that mean?
Well, let's get this definitively out of the way. It's completely in canon that clone troopers were not being used by the time of the original trilogy. Again, they got rid of everything from the expanded universe is not considered official, but now they've got the new continuity that is official. Star Wars Rebels did an episode that was specifically about like Imperial training and Stormtrooper training. But more importantly, the new book, Star Wars Tarkin, which is set 5 years after Revenge of the Sith, very specifically says that the clone troopers have been phased out. There might be a few left, though they're all kind of getting old because they age so quickly. And at this point, they are now recruiting people to be stormtroopers. So all the stormtroopers we saw in the original trilogy, you know, talking on the Death Star, those are not clones. And North, especially, you know, what, 50 years later after Revenge of the Sith, these guys would not be clones either. So
I read
it's all fine.
I read a comic called Star Wars Darth Vader in the Ghost Prison.
Yeah.
And they said because they had to rush to fill the ranks of the clones that were left empty, they just put a ton of people through the training program very quickly, which is why they all kind of suck at shooting.
Right.
Can never hit anything.
But that's not officially canon, that comic anymore. But,
no, it's true.
But like
yeah,
you said,
sort of
I think they're going to cherry pick, though.
Yeah. But one other thing is that, you know, Max von Sydow, is that how you say his name?
Sydow.
Yeah. He looks sort of like he could be a Imperial someone, right? Like sort of a relic from the old Empire.
He's very of the type that they would have cast in the original trilogy, like sort of this, you know, distinguished British actor who would play, you know, a guy in a gray suit walking on a, you know, on a Star Destroyer. Yeah.
So what would you think of the idea of him sort of like rallying his own sort of Imperial rebellion?
Right. It's hard, you know, again, we haven't even seen anything of him, but I've gone there too. You know, it's like, because it seems like, hey, what if he is, you know, this remnant of the Empire that is, who, again, we don't know who's calling the shots. Who are these stormtroopers answering to is a big question that I'm very curious about.
Yeah, and another, I think just on a bigger level of why bring back stormtroopers, nostalgia. Right? They're going straight for that. This trailer was full of like, oh, like we recognize these stormtroopers. We love like seeing stormtroopers. A little different design, kind of cool. And then obviously seeing like TIE fighters in action again against the Millennium Falcon. That's like, there's no way you can't get worked up about that if you're a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, and you know, it goes with, we had the clone troopers in the prequels. We had the original trilogy Star Wars. Now we've got these stormtroopers. And all those people who do those awesome Stormtrooper costumes, the cosplay, the 501st.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see you guys wearing this stuff. So that's what we think. That's a bunch of theories. Of course, all theories for now. What do you think? Why are there still Stormtroopers around? Who are they answering to? We'll have plenty more on Star Wars here at IGN.